Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Cesar Carino, your host, and our guest today is Rosemarie Daley. She's been around for a long time in Wadsworth and knows Wadsworth backwards and forwards. Rosemarie, how about starting by telling us who you are and where you were born and who your parents were and who your families are and so forth. So are you aren't so vain as to not tell us when you were born, are you?
Of course I am.
Oh, you are?
That's not a question to ask a lady. Now, I was born in 1930.
Okay, what day?
January 25th.
January 25th, 1930. And where were you born?
In Akron, Ohio, on North Hill, which is an Italian neighborhood.
And do you remember what street you were born on?
No.
I don't remember. And when did you come to Wadsworth?
My dad worked for the city loan, and
here in Wadsworth?
Yeah. And we moved here when I was in kindergarten.
So 5 years old.
Yeah,
5 years
five
old.
or six.
Where did you go to kindergarten?
Lincoln School.
Lincoln School. Do you remember some of your kindergarten people, the people you went to kindergarten with?
I really don't.
You don't remember those? How about your teacher? Who was your teacher? Remember her?
I remember the principal because he went to our church, which was the Church of Christ.
And what was his name?
I don't remember.
Was it Mr. Joachim or Mr. Holcomb?
Mr. Joachim.
Mr. Joachim,
right.
yeah.
Just
Earl Joachim.
Sweet man.
Oh, very nice, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, he's gone now, but all of those people we were acquainted with, the schools are gone. How about your mother and father? Who was your father and where was he born, and what about your mother and so forth?
Daddy was the first child in his family of 8 boys.
Of 8 boys, wow.
And 1 girl.
1 girl. So there are 9 in the family altogether, right?
He was the first one born in this country.
And where were his parents born?
In Italy and Sicily.
Oh, yes, okay.
Grandma was, her name was Bondi.
Bondi.
And she was born in Termini Maresi.
In Sicily?
In Sicily. And that's on the East Coast.
On the East Coast?
Pretty
okay,
much,
fine.
yeah.
Way over then. Right?
Yeah. And Granddad was born in a village fairly close to that, but I just don't know as much about his family. Typically, you know about the mother, the women, and not the man.
Not the man. That's right, exactly. That's what most of the people who come on this program can tell you almost anything about their mothers, because their mothers talk, and their fathers don't talk.
That's right.
And how about your mother? Where was she born? Who was she?
Mom's name is Elsie Cranston.
Elsie Cranston. Now, how is she related to the Cranstons here in Wadsworth, or is she not?
I don't think so.
That's a fairly common name.
Maybe way back.
And that would be probably, Scotch?
Scotch,
yeah. Well, the Cranstons in Wadsworth are Scotch as well.
Well, there was a historical Lord Cranston that pops up in history at about 1600. So
and was she related, do you think?
Oh, I think they all, eventually are.
I think in Scotland particularly, the clans all had the same name, so they probably all were related.
And in Scotland, as in most of Europe, the fortune of the family stayed with the oldest son and his children. The rest of the kids were out of luck.
They're out of luck.
Unless the oldest one chose to give them things instead of his own family, which rarely happens.
It's like in the animal kingdom, the first one, the big one, and so forth, gets all of the spoils.
I think there's a lot of similarity. We're all animals, after all.
We are. We're part of the animal kingdom, that's right. Now, what about siblings? Do you have siblings, sisters, brothers?
I have 2 sisters.
Older or younger?
I'm the eldest.
You're the oldest.
Can't you tell?
Not really. And who were your sisters, and where are they, and who are they now?
Ruth, and I always called her Ruthie because that's what we called her. And my friends in Columbus said, Ruthie? And my sister's middle name is Estelle, so I quickly came up with, yes, Ruth E. Her name is Ruth
Estelle. So Ruthie, makes a lot of sense to me.
But I still call her baby name Ruthie.
Ruthie, right. And where is Ruthie now?
She's still in New Philadelphia, which is, my family moved there from Wadsworth the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, so you went all the way through school in Wadsworth, though, right?
Yes, yes. Oh,
okay.
yes.
And then you have another sister as well. Is she younger than
Linda.
Ruthie?
Yeah, she's younger than I. She's 12 years younger than I.
She's 12 years younger.
Her name is Linda, and she's married to a Lutheran pastor.
Where?
They're living in Mentor now. Mentor is very east.
In northeast in Ohio.
Yeah, right on the lake, but the very eastern tip of the lake.
Ah, way over there. Yeah. And you're, since you're the oldest, since you're part Scotch.
My sister always said, I want you to meet my sister. She's older than I, much older.
Much older than you. How much older are you than your next sister?
Well, Ruthie, 5 years.
5 years, and then 12 years from Ruthie, or 12 years
from me.
From you, so 7 years late from Ruthie. That's so you have younger sisters then, and they're still living, for which we're grateful. So many of us are the only ones left anymore, you know, in the family. Tell us about your father. You had mentioned that he worked for the City Loan here in Wadsworth. Tell us about that. City Loan was where at the time? Now, Rosemarie, what we have to do, I'm going to call you Rosie because that's what I've always called you. Rosie, I wonder if what we have to do on this program is to identify, not necessarily, say for instance, the City Loan. I happen to know that it was the second building down from the bank.
It's true.
But the bank may not be there 50 years from now. So we have from the intersection of College Street on Main Street, facing, it was on the west side of the road, west side of the street.
That's right.
About, what, 150 feet? 100 feet, that's where it was. So we have to identify it by huge landmarks because the building may not be there at that time.
It's hard to imagine.
Well, it's happening, let me tell you.
Oh,
It's all the time. So we have City Loan. Who was in charge of the City Loan at that time? Do you remember?
Daddy was manager.
Your dad was manager. And your father's first name was what?
Jack.
Jack Daley.
His name was Jack A. Daley. His middle name was Augustus.
Just like mine.
And he hated that.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think that at his time that he was born, there was, I mean, at least he felt there was some stigma in being Italian.
Oh, really?
I do. And he never said them. He never said anything.
Right.
He was a very internal person.
Very internal.
Except when he was on. Daddy was a real showman. He had been a musician.
I was going to say, yeah.
And for years, and traveled with some of the big bands. And then their own band was called the California Nighthawks. Yeah. And I thought I could bring you a picture, but I couldn't find it.
Couldn't find a picture. Tell us about your dad's articulation and affiliation with music. Very, very popular many, many years ago. Tell us about it.
Well, he and his brother, his older brother.
And his name was?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam.
Always Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam, right.
Sam was a gordo, very heavy.
Heavy man, remember that.
Yeah. And a big, rowdy Italian family.
But a tremendous musician.
Oh, he was, that whole family were so talented, all the way down to the youngest Jim, whose children now are organists. And I mean, the whole family was just so talented. Daddy played all the string instruments. Sam played everything but the string instruments, and his favorite was clarinet.
Clarinet.
And
well, did they have a radio show too?
Yeah, from WAGC. Sort of first breakfast club ever. And what I remember is him being in the studio and him asking me what I would like to hear them play, and I remember I wanted the Good Ship Lollipop.
The Good Ship Lollipop, and I'm
they
sure.
They played it.
How old were you at the time that happened?
3 or 4.
3 or 4 years of age. You know, when you're that young and you go to a radio studio, you probably, I suspect that you had not really been there before, but when you go that young and you go to a radio studio, what was your impression? I mean, were you frightened? Was it awesome? Was it overpowering?
No, I was a ham even at that age.
Oh, you were a ham at that age.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say something that maybe I shouldn't, maybe have to edit out.
Oh, no.
But this is what I'm told, that as I was approaching Daddy and on the audio, I said, "Hey, Mom, my pants is in my cack." So that's one of the things, that one of those cute stories that embarrass kids to death.
Absolutely. And you were 3 or 4 years old?
Yeah.
Well, you know, straight honesty, that's what we're looking for. What about your musical talent? Did you?
I got nothing except appreciation.
Nothing but appreciation.
I tried to learn guitar from Dad, and he wanted to, this is years ago, he was taught in Akron for years, and so of course he wanted to teach me music, and all I wanted to do was learn to play
the guitar.
Learn to play songs.
Oh, I see.
So our lessons didn't last long.
Well, now, did your dad study music, or was he just a naturally talented?
No, I don't think any of them studied.
They just picked it up.
No, they weren't economically able. I don't think that was even an issue.
Now, Uncle Sam was kind of the leader, though, wasn't he? Or was your dad?
I never sensed that kind of thing.
Right. What kind of music did they play?
Well, it would have been probably
popular music at the time.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking way back in the 30s.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember the radio stations. I mean, I remember the radio because the Daley family was very prominent in Akron, very, very prominent in Akron, particularly with music. And since you said that they were Italian, of course, we had a lot of Italian relationships and friends that caused us to be much closer than that. Good. Let's change gears just for a couple of seconds. We want to come back to this because it's extremely interesting, but let's change gears for a couple of seconds and go to your younger days. Where did you live in Wadsworth?
On College Street.
On College Street. And where on College Street?
I would never remember the
number. Where is it from the cemetery? The cemetery probably won't change.
Right. It was it was away from downtown.
Away from downtown. It was west of the cemetery.
West.
And approximately how far?
Well, it was a mile from my place to school.
So you will live way out on College Street.
Yeah.
Beyond
really.
where we now have Isham School and where we had centralized school.
We lived across from centralized school.
Right across from centralized school.
Right.
And hopefully there will be an Isham School at that point, 50 years from now. But
who's Isham, if I can digress?
Vernon V. Isham was the superintendent of the township schools, and they named it after him. He's been gone for many, many years. Died suddenly, unfortunately. There is a story about where your house was that I think that is particularly significant. In the Connecticut Western Reserve, the 16th section had to be devoted to government, religion, and schools. Well, the 16th the section is right where your house was, and that's where the downtown should have been. But for whatever reason, and we think that the reason is that it was down in the valley and it was a lot swampy at that time and so forth, so they built up on the hill, which is where the square is right now. So our square is not in the 16th district or in the 16th section. However, had it been where it was supposed to be by law, by the Connecticut Western Reserve standards, your house would have been right smack in the middle of the square. But you lived there. Now, to put this in geographical terms, you lived approximately a mile west of the present square in Wadsworth on the south side of the road. And the house is still there. As a matter of fact, I know it's still there because I just came by it the other day.
Yeah,
and
I
do
still
remember,
see it, little brick house.
Yeah, little brick house, and I remember that you lived there. Now you walked to school. Now
wait.
Okay.
My dad, every morning, took a absolute car full of kids to school.
Right, and I was going to ask you about who the kids were who went to school with you.
Well, Carol Mills' grandma lived across the street, so she would have been there, and the Steyer kids.
Right.
And
It'd be Marge and
Norma.
Norma Steyer.
I don't really.
Carol Mills was our classmate.
And I don't remember even, but the car was always full. But I was usually not in it because I tended to stay up until, start my homework at 2 in the morning, or at 12, and I'd be going to bed at 2 or 3, and I could never get up in the morning. So I'd have to walk.
The car was full of other kids, but you would walk to school. Teach you to be studious. That's good. Now, when you were in school, you went to Lincoln School, though, right?
Just for kindergarten.
Then where did you go, to the Central School? And do you remember who some of those teachers were at that time?
Oh, yeah. Miss Knopf.
Miss Knopf, yes.
Lulu Knopf. Oh, she was scary.
Scary?
Oh, yeah.
Her niece is still living. Her niece
really?
is, yes. Her niece is Peg Klotz. She is 90 years old, and she this past year retired as an aide at the middle school.
She just retired.
Just retired.
God bless her.
Yeah, and they called her grandma there. So that was her niece, and everyone knows Lulu Knopf. Everyone knows Lulu Knopf.
She was a wonderful teacher, but
yeah.
she was stern.
Strict, stern. There were no buddy stuff with Lulu Knopf.
Oh no, oh no.
And do you remember who the principal was? She was also stern.
It couldn't have been, wasn't Miss Lytle.
It was Miss Lytle, Beth Lytle, yes.
And I was so crazy about her. She wore black stockings
all the time, right?
Yeah.
She was a sweet, very, very sweet person.
Yes, she was.
And then when they finally built Overlook School in 1954, she was moved there as the principal.
Oh.
And we tell these little stories so that people have something to go on in case anyone wants to know where Miss Beth Lytle, or who the first principal of Overlook School was Beth Lytle. Beth Lytle. And she would walk to school, as you remember. She would always walk to school. She had a hat on. And Lulu Knopf was not only a stern teacher, but she held herself very erectly, didn't she? Yeah, very, with the bun in her hair. And I always remember with gray hair.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so she was even old at that time. So
I was very much afraid of her. I hesitate to say this because it sounds gratuitous, but in our day, we seem to have been so much further ahead than kids are now, despite the TVs, despite the computer. We started learning Spanish in the 3rd or 4th grade from Miss Seldebrand, and whatever one thought of Miss Knopf, she was a heck of a teacher.
Oh, there's no question about it. They were scared to death of her, but no one has ever said, on this program at least, no one has ever said that she was a bad teacher.
Oh, my
they just said they were scared of her. That's right. Then you went on to junior high school, and at that point, kids came from 3 different schools: Central, Franklin, and Lincoln. Your friends that you went from kindergarten, or from 1st grade all the way up to 6th grade, were whom? Who were those friends?
Oh, honey. Carol, of course.
Carol Mills, yeah.
And Maxine.
We're talking Carol Messner Mills.
Messner Mills. And Maxine.
Maxine.
Clifford Zivick. And Joni Beard, who was one of the only black kids in the
school. Joni Beard, she's gone now. She is. Yeah, she's gone. Joni Beard Galbraith, Galbreith. She and her husband are both gone.
Oh my, too soon.
Oh, she was a sweetheart.
She was a wonderful kid, and she and Levi Mills are about the only black kids we were exposed to.
And Levi's gone too.
And he had everybody and all the girls doing his homework for him. He did, and we all wore his letters. He had 4 letters or whatever.
Oh, he was a phenomenal football player.
Oh, he was. And years later, somehow I heard from him he wanted his sweater back, and so there was this this hunt through the girls to find his sweater. Well, I had not, it had gone from me to somebody else, so I couldn't help. But at that time, he had gotten his doctorate. I thought, no, I did his homework for him. That's not fair.
Not fair at all. Not fair at all. But what a tremendous personality he had.
Boy,
everyone loved him.
Gorgeous smile.
Yeah, he was just a great person.
Joni Beard, just one little second. She, at prom time for our senior prom.
Yes, I know what you're going to say.
There weren't any. Levi was the only black boy, and she and Levi were not good friends at all. And she wanted to bring her boyfriend
from Akron.
And they wouldn't let her do that.
I remember that.
Makes me teary right now. She was so hurt about it.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. We were down in the gym, and Harriet Crable was the class advisor, and she said that it was not permitted to have an outsider come to the prom. And I think we all felt very bad for Joni. Yeah, and I don't think that she ever forgot that either.
I don't doubt it. It's funny what sticks in your mind.
Well, then when you went to, now we call it middle school, but it was junior high school at that time. Did you make new friends from those other different classrooms?
I'm sure I did.
And who were some of those people that you were friendly with at the time?
Paul Thomas.
Paul Thomas, brilliant person who became a television star in Phoenix, Arizona. He's now dead.
Is that right?
I noticed that they're getting a different gender in here of friends.
Yeah, I guess you do when you get. But he was just a friend.
Oh yeah.
Roger Dutt.
Roger Dutt, who's also gone now.
Eleanor Hall, maybe.
Eleanor Hall, she's still around.
Yeah, I know she was.
Eleanor Hall Haith.
Haith, yeah.
Right.
She was one of the first kids to be married.
Oh, really? I thought Marietta Jackson was.
Well, she might have been, because she'd been going with that guy for a long time.
She was married about a week or so after school was out.
Margaret Cook, do you remember
Margaret Cook, yes. I surely do play the piano so beautifully.
She was the first one to have a baby early, and I don't know what, she went to my church. She was this beautiful and talented
talented girl, yeah. Her father was Wilbur Cook, and he was the head of the brickyard.
Oh, I don't know that. It's funny, kids, I don't know when people start trying to align themselves with wealthy and powerful people, but as kids you don't give a damn.
No.
You just, whoever you like,
you like. That's right. You didn't care what they were. That's right, exactly. Yeah. Let's go to the high school. When you were in high school, of course, everyone remembers you as being a very intelligent girl, and you still are. And they knew that you were destined for an education. Some of the teachers, particularly in your area, would have been, Oliver Cooper and...
Oh, yes, he was so handsome.
Yeah. I didn't think about the handsome part.
He was. He was so poetic looking.
Yes, he was.
And you were in his class,
yes,
weren't you?
I was.
There were just a few people in his chosen English class.
Right, and how did that influence you and what you did then in life later on?
Not consciously, but he certainly drew us into the literature he was teaching.
He was so good at that.
Oh yeah, a beautiful reader.
What teachers were the ones who made the greatest impact on you, and why?
That's something. I think The Spanish teacher.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
She and her husband, Gordon Hildebrand, Louisa Oberholzer Hildebrand, and Gordon Hildebrand were killed in an automobile accident.
Yeah.
In the summertime, probably 1950, something like that.
Yeah,
it was just a horrible thing. She was the first female assistant high school principal anywhere around.
Good for her.
And she was good. She was outstanding. She was really, really good.
Did she teach? No, she taught me. Who taught? Oh boy. The boys took machine shop, and the girls took.
Commercial.
Well, yeah, I did take typing and shorthand, but also like homemaking and.
The homemaking, Frances Henry.
Frances Henry.
Right, Frances Henry.
Sure.
Yes, she taught the domestic arts, I think that we called them at that time, the home ec or something like that.
Yes, I'll never forget.
Now they have all kinds of names for them, but we called it home ec at that time, and Frances Henry was the person who taught that class.
I can recall vaguely what she looked like, but she wasn't friendly. Like Miss Oberholzer was.
No, she was somewhat stern.
Somewhat stern,
yeah.
And I remember our first cooking lesson, we mid candied apples.
Oh, candied apples.
Bread.
That's a good staple.
Yeah, and I didn't do well at that. I'm a consummate loser. And I'm rather proud of it. I seem to have failed at everything I've tried to do.
How can that possibly be when you've been so successful in so many other things? You went on to college. Tell us about your college and where you went and why, and how you continued with that.
I worked my first year out of high school to make enough money.
And where'd you work?
At the Injector.
At the Injector. Many of the girls did. And with whom did you work, or for whom did you work?
Hank Porterfield.
Say that again.
Hank Porterfield.
Hank Porterfield. In what department?
You know, I don't remember. It wasn't manufacturing. It must have been marketing or something.
Marketing. But you were in the new office building, were you not? Or were you in one of the factory offices?
I think not in the factory.
So a new office building. The new office building was built in 1945. And since you went there in 1948, they would have been there for 3 more years. Or 3 years already.
Mm-hmm.
That's been sold now, and it now belongs to the Palisek law firm.
Oh.
Yeah, McIlvaine Palisek law firm.
That's big, a law firm, all that space.
And they take up just about all of the space. They have a little bit rented out, but it was a big place. And it was considered at that time probably the most ornate office building anywhere around. Of course, right now, by standards, you know, they've made all kinds of glass and polymer structures and all those other kinds of things.
Those egg carton places where your petitions go.
Yes.
I remember going to a friend of mine's place in Minneapolis, and this huge football-sized thing with all these partitions, and I said to a colleague of hers, I'm standing up looking, I said, how many people work here? And he said, 1 or 2 on a good day.
1 or 2 a day. That's a good answer. What did you major in college? Where did you go to college?
Oh, I went to Ohio State to get my bachelor's. And
in what area?
In journalism.
In journalism. That's why I was asking whether Oliver Cooper had any influence on you.
I guess he had. I guess he had.
Now, in journalism, you know, people think that, oh, you just go out and write stories and so forth, but there's a tremendous body of knowledge in journalism.
Oh, yes.
And one of the things that, of course, since I've known you for so many, many years now, 70 years or so, I've known you for all these years, I think that probably your abilities were probably even beyond what you'd learned, because you parlayed what you learned there at Ohio State and then even went farther. Where did you go after Ohio State?
Let me just say that Ohio State, I went to Stanford, but there couldn't have been two different orientations. At Ohio State, we learned to be newspaper people.
Right.
From the minute we started, we were covering and writing, working on the desk, and actually producing the Lantern. A lot of us would do internships with the Beacon Journal, or then it was called Citizens Journal, CJ, or the
Beacon Journal, yes.
And it was, and Stanford took a totally different orientation to it, and there were no practical.
Nothing practical.
Nothing at all.
What did you learn then? History and philosophy of journalism or something?
Well, I'm trying to think. Of course, I went there for grad school, and I was interested in communications research at the time. And I don't know what they did in undergraduate school.
Well, what did you do after you got out of graduate school then?
I worked for one of the first semiconductor companies.
Works for one of the first semiconductor companies.
Yes.
Now that has to be
Fairchild Semiconductor.
Fairchild, and where is it located in California?
Sunnyvale.
Sunnyvale, California. And what did you do for Fairchild?
Well, let me say first that Fairchild was the result of it was owned or run by a man named Bob Noyce, who was about 28 at the time.
No kidding.
And he, Shockley, a man named Shockley, who was very strange, had invented the semiconductor.
When you say strange, what do you mean strange?
Well, he was sort of a hermit.
A hermit? Okay, that's strange enough right there.
And he was, after he invented the thing, he was totally disinterested in it, never came out of his office. So finally, 3 of the people left him, and Bob Noyce started Fairchild Semiconductor because, with a lot of money from the Fairchild air industry. And Texas Instruments was also a big semiconductor company, and one of the other people who were in that group of 3 started that company, that semiconductor company. They called it Tiny Instruments. I mean, Noyce did.
Yeah, Tiny Instruments, yeah.
And so it was an incredible time, and to have personally known Bob Noyce seemed to me to be.
Oh, you knew him personally then?
Incredible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the father.
Well, it was a small, it was a small company then.
At that time, yeah. Need to change gears again because we're going to run out of time, but you're a world traveler.
Oh, I've been in a lot of places.
Tell us where you've been and how you got there and what you did when you got there.
Well, I had, out of high school, I'd saved my money. I worked all the way through high school,
right.
Where
did you work half days?
I worked for a man named Jim Hosevar at International Printing Inc.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And what I remember most from there is that I had to keep the stamp money.
Mm-hmm.
And every day he would argue with me about how I had not done right with the stamp money, and it would be a big brouhaha, and I had to have a headache. And then at the end of the month, he'd give me whatever was left in the stamp. So I am not much of a bookkeeper, and money is a mystery to me even today. This is why I'm poor. So I worked for him I think I was one of the only kids that worked half-time during high school, and I had all my classes in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I did that, but I did.
It was illegal at the time, but now it's legal.
That was remembered at the end of the war, and there just weren't people to do jobs. So I actually was working in a restaurant. There was one nice restaurant in town.
Which one? Kleckner's? Where was it located?
On the west side of the street, near Stonier's Jewelry.
Yeah, that was Kleckner's, or it could have been Freidig's at that time.
Oh, yeah, I think it was Freidig's.
Freidig's, then Kleckner's.
So I worked as a waitress there, and I did about as well there as I was ever going to do anywhere.
Oh, really?
One of the first things I did, the family next door had a son who was an officer in the Navy. And of course, this kid, what did I say I was? Certainly wasn't 16. I was just awed by this handsome
And what was his name? Do you remember?
Hamilton was the family name. I don't remember what his name was.
But you were awed by the person whose name you did not know.
Yes, I could look at him from our house. And he came in to the restaurant, and he was sitting at our little counter. And I, couldn't take my eyes off him. Well, right underneath was big gallon jars of stuff. And so I was supposed to fill the iced tea thing. And I picked up the wrong jar, and it was chocolate syrup, and I got it this far and dropped it, and it broke on the table and went all over. This idol of my life. I don't remember anything after that.
I would imagine you wouldn't. What did he say?
See, I don't remember it. I think he jumped away, of course.
I would imagine. A gallon of chocolate syrup.
But anyway, that just to illustrate that was kind of a harbinger of the rest of my career.
that was going to be the direction.
Seems to be.
Yeah. Well, where did you go on some of your trips? What was the first one that you remember going to?
Actually, I went with a friend to Mexico.
To Mexico.
And that was very early. 2 years out of, the year I graduated from high school, I took my money that I'd saved working for Jim Hocevar, and that was to be for college. And actually, I don't think people would mostly understand this, but I gave it all to my dad to keep for me, every week. And Dad, being who he was, kept track of if he gave me a nickel for a piece of gum, he had it written down. And so when I wanted to go, he was not really willing to let that go for me to go to Europe because that was school money. And my mother prevailed. Your mother prevailed. She was a stern little Scots lady, but I got some of my flights of fancy from her. Oh, really? Very, very submerged, but she sure had them. So she really got a kick out of my trip. And where did you go? Did one of those, if it's Tuesday, it's Belgium trips. I was supposed to go stay with a French woman who was going to teach me French because I had been supposed to be taking French lessons from a French war bride in Wadsworth. Do you remember who that was? No, not Wadsworth, New Philly. From New Philly, okay. Philly. And when I went, I did the traveling around Europe first. So by the time I got to Madame Schneider's, who lived right under the Sacré-Cœur on the East Bank in Paris, she'd already gotten aboard a white Russian general. And I will never forget trips on the metro to see her, because she spoke in French and the white Russian general spoke in Russian. You spoke in English. And I spoke in English. And it was like a bedlam, Tower of Babel. But you didn't spill any hot chocolate on the Russian general, did you? No. Just once. I never understood a word he said. And Madame Schneider tended to talk all the time about either her menopause or how much she hated the Germans.
Either one of the two could cause it.
I think that's what she was saying. That was fun.
So how long did you stay in France then?
I just stayed a couple months and was going to stay longer and work. I had met this woman, a Jamaican girl named Dorothy, and we were looking for a job together. I remember interviewing with this French woman, and Dorothy, she wanted as her children's nurse because Dorothy had this lovely Jamaican accent, and this beautiful girl, dark-skinned. Me, she had tagged as the bon tout faire. That means somebody that does everything.
Yeah, bon tout faire.
That was not my idea of a good job.
You didn't care for that, huh?
So that was out. So I actually came home sooner than I had hoped.
And then where'd you go?
Oh, by the way, I met a young man on the way back who was in the French Air Corps and was going to Toronto. And they discovered when he got to Toronto that he had TB. Oh. So they sent him home. Mm. And I still communicate with him.
Oh, is that right?
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Obviously TB didn't take him.
No, I don't know if he ever, listen to that, was that rain?
Well, yes, we have a little bit of rain today.
We sure have. Yes, I talk to him on the computer all the time, and he's married with lots of grandchildren, and a young wife, of course, typical male.
Typical male, he wants a young wife. Well, absolutely, why not?
Why not?
Now then, what's the farthest place that you went? Did you go to China? Did you go to Japan? And did you go to Russia?
Never been to Russia.
What about the European countries? How many of the European countries have you seen? Oh
yeah, I did the usual thing through France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium.
All of those.
You know, the usual, the usual.
Did you stay at a long time at any one place?
No, that was one of those.
Just a tour?
Just a tour. And it was a bus tour.
A bus tour.
And there were about 15 of us. And I've got a picture of me. I wish I had it with me, sleeping, because I would be out running around every night and sleep all day when we were looking at all the beautiful, beautiful scenery. I never saw any of it.
But you saw it at night.
Well.
A lot of it at night. Let's change gears again just for a minute, coming back to your Wadsworth associations and
Let me just say that was my first trip, but I'm, through the years, have been to India 3 times.
To India 3 times?
One time I actually went to to study with a particular guru who happened to be in the U.S. when I got there. That was in Western India, in Kerala.
And Kerala. Kerala is the one place in the entire world where 100% of the people are literate.
Is that true? I didn't know
100% of the people in Kerala are literate.
You know so much, Caesar.
Well, you know, I just happen to pick that up from people who tell me. I just remember what they tell me. Tell us about this guru that you studied with.
I didn't get to, because he was in the U.S. when I was there, but I had heard about him, and I wanted to. I was very interested in the Buddhist theology, and so I spent a lot of time in that. I was there a couple weeks in going to the temple, and you just sit there, take your shoes off and go in and sit there.
Now, did you ever espouse any of the religions that you studied?
Oh, no. Although it's quite possible, I think, to be both Buddhist and Christian. There are somebody in my own church seems to have that orientation.
What denomination do you espouse now?
Oh, I go to Methodist
Church
for years.
For Methodist Church. Now then, when you would say that you could be a Christian and a Buddhist at the same time, do you practice both at the present time? You don't practice them.
No, Buddhism is requires more discipline than I have. Tell the truth.
They don't let you sleep during the day. you have to sleep at night so that you can see the scenery during the day. What about some of the other places? Now we've gone. That's the Eastern Hemisphere, and we have the Western Hemisphere. Have you ever gone north as far as Alaska, for instance?
You know, I want to do that, but I've never been to Alaska. I've been to Canada, of course, but not the far north of Canada.
And what about the other way down to South America, or perhaps even to Antarctica?
I've been just a couple of years ago. Went down the Amazon in Peru.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Did you go down the Amazon River? On a boat or something? And tell us your impression. We see it on television all the time, but what are the smells like?
Oh, golly. If you're in a village, they're rank.
They're rank?
But outside...
What does the smell like? What kind of rankness is it? Is it human odor, or is it rotting garbage, or dead fish, or what?
Now consider that as you're going down the Amazon, as you're going south, we saw nothing but jungle on the right across the river.
On the west side.
And all the settlements are on the right side.
Nothing on the
little
left?
Town. There probably is, but they're inland. We saw nothing but jungle.
Yeah.
And
did you see any exotic sea life in the Amazon as you were going down in the boat?
you're supposed to be able to see pink dolphins, and actually some people saw them, but
you didn't see any?
I saw some splashing in the water, but I didn't see any pink dolphins.
No pink dolphins.
And those beautiful macaws.
They did see the
macaws?
macaws?
Saw 2 of them flying, and that's the only thing I saw.
About it,
I have emphysema, so I was kind of limited as to the walks I could do. But at one place, the woman I was traveling with, Judy Gusler, she went with a group on a long hike, and they saw an anaconda, which was really interesting. I hate snakes, but I would be really interested in seeing it from a distance. Yeah.
For a real big, long distance, from a long distance. That's right. Are there any other places you'd like to talk about before we change subjects again here?
Well, China was very interesting.
Oh, you went to China too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, went up the Yangtze River on the boat. And also went up to the Great Wall and walked along the Great Wall for hours. And
that's about 1/1000th of its length.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Can't believe it.
Yeah. There's a lot about China. China was, this is only a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So you could see the tremendous construction was really interesting, because a lot of, how there's a lattice of steel girders when we're building. Mm-hmm. There was a lattice of bamboo stuff when they were building. Yes, and you wondered how many people got killed there, climbing all over that stuff.
I would imagine so.
I mean, these are skyscrapers,
Bamboo?
Well, they didn't go, they went up 3 stories, I'll bet, or maybe 4.
That's quite a bit, surprised, but evidently it holds up,
That kind of startling comparison between the ancient and the new occurred in various ways.
Now, did your instincts for journalism come out? Did you write about these things and keep them somewhere?
I do have, yes. I'm not sure I did it on that trip. I was just looking. I had a little notebook about that fool. And I did keep a day-by-day thing on one of the trips. I don't remember. I just read it, but that's my memory, you know.
With your talent, though, if you would write that, that'd probably be extremely valuable for someone somewhere.
I agree. You know, I really do. But I'm just so lazy. Just to get that's the truth.
And you're so honest about it. Let's go back to Wadsworth for just a couple of minutes here. Who's left in Wadsworth of your family?
Nobody.
Nobody? No. So you live where now?
In New Philadelphia. Or I live in Columbus.
You live in Columbus.
My sister, who is left, Ruthie, my parents, of course, are gone now.
Yes. When did they leave us?
Ooh. Dad died about 10 years ago, and Mom died 3 years earlier.
How old would they be if they were still living?
Daddy was almost 99 when he died.
When he died, almost 99.
And Mom was about 91, and that was a miracle because she was ill all her life, really ill.
What year were they born? Do you remember?
I think Mom was born like 1903, something
Your father?
like that. The 2-3 years before that.
So about 1900?
1900, yeah.
So he died about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And where are they buried?
In New Philly.
Where?
In New Philadelphia.
Oh, in New Philadelphia. Now, what brought them, or what took them to New Philadelphia?
Dad's job.
Oh, his job.
Yeah, he was transferred. Actually, Dad, at the very wrong time economically, left the city loan and opened I think it was a big hardware store in Rittman, which may still be called Daley's.
I don't think it is, but you know, it's possible.
A few years ago, they told me it was still called
Did he
Daley's.
buy it from Hoagland Hardware, the one that?
I don't know,
remember?
honey. I don't
There was
remember.
a Hoagland Hardware in Rittman at one time, and there's a possibility of it. Now, since no one here lives in no one lives in Wadsworth, tell us about your feelings about being.
Hey, wait, go ahead. Can you take a second?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
At that place that Dad had in Rittman, it was flooded. This is just shortly after he had gotten the job there. They went down, the basement was full of snakes. We were just talking about snakes.
And did you go down to?
Oh no, God no! I mean, I didn't even want to hear about it. But that was awful.
Oh, because of the flood?
The water, yeah.
What did they do with the snakes then?
I don't know. I don't know anything but that.
You didn't go down to check them out, huh?
No. So Dad was not very long in Rittman, and then they offered him a job as sort of an auditor, and they based him in
New Philadelphia. Tell us about, since you don't live in Wadsworth anymore and your family's all gone from Wadsworth, you still consider Wadsworth home?
Well, sort of I do. I like to come. I just have these few friends that are here.
And who are some of the friends you still have here?
Well,
I'm one of them, obviously. I hope. I'm your friend.
Maxine
Clifford, Zivic.
And Pat Zivic.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Carol Mills.
Messner Mills.
And we've been friends and have kept in touch closely.
For years and
actually, with everybody, either phone or write or something.
Now, of the memories that you have as a high school girl, what are some that you will never forget?
Oh.
And I'll give you a couple examples. For instance, one time we were having an after-school meeting, and I ate something that was I don't know if it was spoiled or not, but it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And somebody in the classroom or in the meeting said, "Get a bag of peanuts and eat those, and you'll feel better." Well, I went from the high school to G&H Drugs, and you knew where G&H Drugs were, and I got a bag of peanuts. And the person who sold them to me said, "Did you eat some of that stuff too?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, everybody's coming in for a bag of peanuts because you ate something and it tasted so bad." And I said, "Well, maybe I did." She said, "Well, will this cure it?" And she said, yes, it will. And I ate the peanut, and honest to heavens, it cured it.
I can't believe
I can't eat it. But to this day, if I ever have something that tastes bad, you know, I eat some peanuts and it goes away. Now, why would I remember that? But what?
Now, I'll never forget that.
No.
Thank you very much.
Tell us now some of the things that you remember like that.
Oh, nothing quite like that. I do remember stopping at Dad's place, City Load, and getting a nickel from him for paper. It was always for paper. He'd say, I just gave you a nickel yesterday. What'd you do with the paper?
Right.
and going down, and there was a store, a store that sold candy.
That was the 5 and 10, the Alsace 5 and 10 store.
But I'm not sure. Anyway,
Ben Franklin.
I don't think it was there.
How about the B&B store?
Maybe, because I bought pretzels all the time with the 5 cents.
Okay, that'll be the B&B store.
Long penny pretzels.
No, that would be at the Ben Franklin, because B&B didn't have. I was there at the time selling them, and we didn't have any pretzels, so it almost have to be there. What else do you remember
from high school? Oh my. Funny that I'm remembering this. When I was about a junior in high school, it wasn't our high school, but I was invited. What was that boy's name? He was going to Western Reserve in Cleveland, and it was a Sigma Chi formal dance.
Oh.
And it was such a thrill. And Mom and I went to Akron and got a long dress.
A dress. Mm-hmm.
I remember it was beautiful. It had nothing like they were now, but and gold shoes that what do you call those things?
Heels.
Well, they weren't heels, but they were.
Platforms?
Solid wedges.
Wedges.
Something. Yeah. And going down the stairs, I slipped. This is at the Sigma Chi house, and went all the way down on my butt.
Oh my heavens!
And ended at the floor.
Rosemary, we have to come to an end.
Okay.
It's such a great pleasure that we had an opportunity to talk with you today. This is your story, and it will be now recorded for posterity. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks so much for sharing all of your memories with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.